I had, as a member Nguyen mentioned, we met with the ad hoc apprenticeship program, and we discussed about how we can actually assess and measure out the existing apprenticeship program in the county with the various different programs, how this will integrate with the CWTA that we've been discussing. It was very fruitful in that we now have a direction, and we have a letter that's going out, I believe, Kara. It's going to go out into the various organizations, which will bring them forward. And then the next step would be to talk to the trades and to figure out how this would look like in a community workforce training agreement. I have a GSEC tomorrow. I had sanitation today, nothing to report. But in terms of the CWTA, my interest here is obviously we have two ad hoc committees. We're working very hard. But my sense is we don't necessarily have a deadline as to when we're going to bring back to council. I know that at the last meeting I had an opportunity to kind of highlight and respectfully, Vice Mayor, you did mention that staff did have that, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had a copy of that, and I think that is an opportunity for us to use that as a roadmap. My interest is to put a date in which we can expect for this to come back for a discussion in open session with members of the community, members of the trade, and council members.
Well, you're talking about the City of Sacramento Project Labor Agreement?
I'm referring to the Sacramento Community Workforce Training Agreement.
Otherwise known as the Project Labor Agreement?
Those are your words, not mine.
I'm just
but
saying.
I'm calling it the Community Workforce Training Agreement,
Okay.
which, again, highlighting the fact that we are looking at opportunities to leverage our government resources to invest locally, to address apprenticeship programs, to build that so that any sort of projects that we are sending out, we will be able to be inclusive and leveraging those limited resources.
I'm not arguing the merits of it, Mayor. All I'm asking for is I just want to clarify what you're talking about. If you're talking about that agreement that the City of Sacramento approved, it was an agreement that took a year of talk. So I guess
over a year.
Over a year. So if you're looking for a deadline, I don't have one for you. And I just want to make sure that we're not violating any Brown Act rules by continuing to talk about.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't continue to talk about this. What I'm asking for is consensus to bring it back to council so we can discuss it.
So if I can weigh in here, and I don't want to talk too much about a non-agendized item, but at the meeting that we reported on in the council comments, we did review the City of Sacramento agreement. Staff has done a great job of parsing that agreement. There's a lot of stuff that are completely not applicable to the City of Elk Grove. The trades were in agreement that there is a lot of negotiating that needs to be done, and that there's really sort of two paths for the discussion, one with respect to the pre-qualification language, and the other with respect to any kind of overarching agreement. And so we are diligently moving in a forward progress, but I don't think that there's any way to sort of fast track a deadline for when we can have all of that information fleshed out. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
So as we continue to talk about this, it makes me uncomfortable that this hasn't been agendized. Mr. Hobbs, if you can chime in.
So your discussion right now is whether to agendize, and I think what I'm hearing is focusing on what is being agendized. So I don't see a legal problem right now, but what I think you should come to terms on is whether or not to agendize this or not.
So I'm looking for a consensus to agendize this so that we can speak about it in public.
I think we had, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we have two ad hoc committee for a reason, right? So Councilmember Hume and the Vice Mayor is discussing the agreement with the trades. You and I, Mayor, are working around workforce development with young people, with the community. And before we can even put anything on the agenda or move this forward, I feel like we haven't even had the chance to move our ad hoc committee to the next step, meeting with the community members and seeing if it's even something they can take on and do. So how can you agendize this conversation when we haven't even started our conversation with the community yet?
And my only point, excuse me, Mayor, my only point is let us do the work that we're trying to do, have the conversations, we will agenda, when we're ready, when we're done, we will bring it ourselves.
My feeling here is there's no reason why we couldn't continue to have the alcohol conversation. And that's something that Sacramento has built a roadmap. We should be aggressively going this direction. That being the case, is that building ad hoc committees for the sake of delaying it sends the wrong message to the community. I think it's important for us to have a timeline so that we can actually bring it back. But what I'm hearing is there's no interest in bringing it back. And so I'm fine with that. All I'm really looking for is consensus so that we can bring it back for further discussion on the dais in the open so that we can have a weigh-in from the community.
I mean, one, I think we're Elk Grove, we're not Sacramento. Two, we need to do our due diligence and make sure we flesh this out fully before we start discussing about things like this. We haven't even had a chance to discuss our ad hoc community or our ad hoc committee with the community like we said we were going to do yet.
And I'm just curious, why do you think it is a roadmap other than being the same type of document? Why do you specifically think that that's a roadmap?
Well, again,
what sections of that agreement?
Again, Mr. Vice Mayor, as we embark on this, I am very uneasy about further discussing this until we actually bring it back to council. I'm fine with the firm statement that each and every one of you are saying that you don't want to bring it back. That's fine. I'm just saying that I'm prepared.
That's not what I said at all, and I don't appreciate it being characterized that way.
I agree.
I
Absolutely.
just said from this dais, we are making forward progress. Allow us to do some heavy lifting away from this dais with the trades, and then when there is something to discuss, we will bring it back. But for you to characterize that we're forming an ad hoc to delay, that's just patently false.
Okay, fine. Then tell me, what's the timeline?
I just find it interesting. You think it's a roadmap, but I don't think you've even read the document. So how would you make that statement? If you have, I'm here. I mean, correct. Tell me why you think it's a roadmap. I'm just asking.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, for
I'm just asking,
pointing this out. But again, we're going back to the issue of what exactly is a CWTA. You made a statement tonight that it's a PLA. I did not make that statement. My interest is to make sure that there are certain things that we can actually leverage our government money to go in appropriately to workforce development, to projects, to apprenticeship program. These are things that are very important to me. And so for you,
they're important to me as well.
That kind of statement.
What kind of statement
is out of order?
What kind of statement?
So again, I'm going to clarify what I'm asking. I'm asking for a bring back to the council. Either I have a consensus or not.
Sure, we can bring it back in 2019. I'll be in favor of that.
I'm sorry, which date is that, council member?
19, next year. We're going to need some time. Yep, we're going to need some time. This is why we have 2 ad hoc committees, so that way we can do our portion of it and they can work on their portion. I just don't understand, how can we put a date on there when we haven't even moved forward what we said we were going to do? We just had a meeting last week.
Sure. My whole intent to this is to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball. If we don't keep our eye on the ball, there's not going to be any efforts to expedite this.
But we're reporting back to the community, our ad hoc committee, and what we're doing. So how are we not keeping an eye on this?
Well, we have no timeline.
How can you timeline a negotiation with so many moving parts to it? I mean, we're talking about joint apprenticeship training.
Let me offer this. Obviously, we're not going to settle this.
Why don't you just tell us?
There's interest in bringing it back in 2019. Are we okay with that?
Wait a minute. Why, as Councilmember Hume was alluding to, this is a complex document. If you're so certain that it can be brought back, I want to know why. I believe in the merits of the document. The project labor agreement, which is also a community workforce agreement, that they are synonymous. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. I would like to know what you think is such a roadmap that we could schedule something, since you're so insistent upon scheduling it as a date certain. And
this is not a schedule for a vote. This is scheduled for a discussion. Why are you uncomfortable about bringing it back?
There's a work product that we're working towards, and we don't like you. When I say we, to Councilmember Hume's points earlier, you are putting words in our mouths, and we don't appreciate that.
I'm telling you, please clarify.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you that I don't believe you've read the document. I don't believe you know why it's a roadmap or not a roadmap. and you're trying to simplify or oversimplify what we're trying to do here.
Let me interrupt you.
And questioning
please stop telling me what I
work.
have done and I have done.
You just asked
I don't
me, so I'm
appreciate that,
answering you.
Vice Mayor. And I think that's inappropriate.
Great, so we both don't appreciate certain things.
It's fine. So
that's
we
fine.
can agree
Okay.
that you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing.
Oh,
The most
then
important
good. I'm
part
finally we
is this.
agree upon that. That's good.
Most important part is, look, if we don't have a consensus, that's fine. All right. If we don't have a consensus, that's fine.
Keep the politicking for
All right?
the campaign.
Okay. So can we move on? Can we move on? Please. Please quiet. Okay, I'm fine with that. If you guys are not comfortable with bringing it back, I just want to go on record that I would like to see it sooner than later. Okay? We good? Okay, let's go on. All right, next item.